Hello, fight fans. It's John Pollock here alongside Robin Black. We're in St. Petersburg, Russia for the World Combat Games. All of our coverage kicking off Friday morning. Sumo and Sambo are going to get everything rolling, and we are going to have you covered all throughout the games up through October the 26th. But Robin, as we've been traveling, lots of news still happening, and we haven't had a chance to discuss the Glory event, which went down this past weekend. A great event in Chicago. Rico Verhoeven winning the one-night heavyweight tournament and becoming their heavyweight champion. A very impressive outing for them, just presentation-wise, and it seems that Glory right now, with the partnership with Spike TV, they really are in a position right now to make an inroads in the North American market, which has always been a struggle for kickboxing.
Yeah, it's true, and I don't know why, because, when you see people watch MMA, a ton of them will complain when it hits the mat. They like seeing guys punch and kick each other in the face, and that's what Glory does. And watching it got me really excited to call Muay Thai here in Russia with you coming up in the next week. And, Glory's doing great things, and I think they're going to do really well.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how they move forward here. One of the interesting parts of it is that you looked at this card, and for a lot of fans who are very familiar with Sergey Kharitonov competing on the undercard, and I think that that's one thing that promoters in learning all this sometimes feel that they have to fill out a whole card, but you don't want to have your expenses so high that you can't keep this going, and you're suddenly placing a lot of restrictions on yourself there with your payroll.
Yeah, it's tough because you want to make the best show you possibly can make, but at the same time, you can't lose money and be out of business either. And at the same time, as well as that, you have Spike TV wanting a television product, and maybe going forward, they have multiple TV shows they'll make out of it. So there's some learning curves still, but Glory's doing cool stuff, and the partnership with Spike is really good.
It's interesting that we're over a week now removed from Fight Night 29, and the memory of that card is going to be Rousimar Palhares and Mike Pierce. We have now heard from Mike Pierce, who has made his comments very well known. He was on the MMA Hour this past week discussing that he heard pops in his knee after he had tapped out. He's obviously very upset, wondering, what the state of his knee is here. And with Rousimar Palhares, he has definitely felt the brunt of this. Lost out on a submission bonus and now cut by the UFC, and I feel justified that they did that.
Yeah, you know what, man? This is one of those things. You can't go around shredding people's knees. And I know some observers will look and go, well, they're in a fight. You're trying to hurt a guy. But these fighters, anyone that fights, there's this unspoken code of taking care of each other. It exists in football. It exists in the military. It exists in any sort of physical grouping of people like that. And you got to take care of each other. And it's a great statement to make for the world of fighting to say, if you're going to go and intentionally harm somebody outside of the scope of the fight, you're not going to compete in this business.
And it's one of the things that in the time we've been here, Robin, and we're talking with many different people here in Russia and from various disciplines that are all unified by combat sports. One word we always hear popping up throughout all of this is honor, and how big that is. And especially in Russia, where whether it be Sambo or it's jiu-jitsu, that is a unifying code. And that's one of the beautiful parts about combat sports, is that honor exists here amongst. We know we're doing something that's very dangerous and not a very small percentage of people can do, and that's what kind of separates us, is that we can go to these extremes, but we have respect and honor for the person that's sharing that cage or ring with us.
Yeah, and that's one of the beautiful things about the sport. And as soon as you get outside of North America for a moment, and you're surrounded by European athletes and you're surrounded by Asian athletes, you see more of that. You see it as a bigger, more important part of the sport. In North America, sometimes we're so busy watching violence that we forget that we're watching this beauty of combat between people. And like I said, one of those things is making sure that you protect and you treat each other with a lot of respect. When John Jones was fighting Machida and he dropped him from that choke, he was looked at very negatively for a while because of that. And the older fighters thought, one day some young kids are going to come up and not protect you in that setting. And it's a part of the sport. It's an important part of the sport.
Bellator has come out publicly, Bjorn Rebney, saying they are not interested in Rousimar Palhares. So where he ends up next is going to be very interesting because, as much as this is a negative for many people to look at with Rousimar Palhares, there's a promoter out there who says, I grabbed this guy, he brings some attention, whether it's positive or negative. Now, World Series of Fighting, earlier this week, they have signed Yushin Okami. Surprised at that signing, and that Bellator did not go after Yushin Okami.
Yeah, I think so. I'm surprised. But, World Series of Fighting looks like they're going to be around for a while, and if they are, they need guys like this. They need, some Yushin Okamis of the world to be able to get in there. So it's a good fit for them. But I'm surprised Bellator didn't go after it. Bellator, you look and their head, Bjorn Rebney, he knows what he's doing. He's a very smart guy. But you feel like that there are people behind the scenes, people at Viacom that have their fingers in the pie a little bit, and I think that's kind of handcuffing him sometimes.
This is going to be a very interesting month for Bellator because now the promotion is really going to ramp up for their pay-per-view debut on November the 22nd. And this show, it's not going to be judged based on a live event perspective. This is going to be pay-per-view numbers. And if they can draw on pay-per-view, it's going to be a very big mountain to climb for this promotion. And we'll be chatting about that a lot this next month. And all of the World Combat Games, they're coming at you from St. Petersburg, Russia, all here on Fight Network. Tune in Friday morning as Sumo and Sambo are going to kick things off. For Robin Black, I'm John Pollock.